won't hear this on the radio.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. Is the price worth it?
The price, we think the price is worth it.
Listen, I really think the media is...
Because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
Could you look me in my eyes and just lie to me?
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
They burn these fucking people alive because the message they want to convey to you is state power will always win.
You're listening to Below the Tension Podcast.
Open up your eyes, 'cause maybe it's all lies. I'm trying to make them break.
How's it going, everyone? Thank you for listening. You are listening to a Saturday episode. My name is Jordan. I'm your host. You can listen to episodes every Wednesday and every Saturday of this podcast, Below the Tension. You can find me on YouTube. Search The Slavic Libertarian. You can find me on SoundCloud, Below the Tension. You can find me on iTunes, Below the Tension. I have an RSS feed that you can find a link on Twitter at Slavic Libertarian. Give me a follow. Say what's up. Tell me if you like the show. I'll give you a follow back. And the link to my RSS feed is on my profile. There have been so much news this week that I've been chomping at the bit to get on air and just talk about it, because I wouldn't care if one person listened to my podcast every week. For me, this is therapy. I just have to just talk about this stuff and just get it out, because it's so infuriating, some of these things. And I have 3 articles here that are going to make me rant. And if you've listened to the show before, you know I can go on pretty good rant. But I've decided to, instead of going on a 20-minute long rant, doing these 3 articles back to back to back, I am going to do one of these articles, and I'm going to hit 1 or 2 other articles, let myself calm down, before I hit the next one that's really just going to set me off again. So you guys are in for a bumpy ride. Strap yourselves in. Now, before I get to the bad news, I want to get to some good news in my world. I had the 1-month anniversary of the show. I started cold turkey, just out of the blue. I've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time. And I just decided I'll just do it. And I whipped up a little logo in my amateur skills, researched how to get on iTunes and all that kind of stuff, and I just started recording. In this first month, I've had almost 400 listens throughout all my platforms. Like I said, you can find me on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, my RSS feed, any of that stuff. Almost 400 listens, going cold turkey in the first month. I think that's pretty dang good. And in other news, I have picked up 2 affiliates that will be carrying my show on their websites. The first one is the Sovereignty Network. The Sovereignty Network is a community of journalists and content creators reporting the revolution of the mind. You can find my personalized show page on their website. They built me a page. It's got my RSS feed. It's got my YouTube feed. It's got my Twitter feed. It's got my bio. It's got the show description. It's got my logo. Everything. Incredible. Carl and Andrew at the Sovereignty Network hooked me up. And you can find my show at sovereigntynetwork.com/below the tension, and they are looking for content creators. Carl built a platform and now needs content creators instead of building a platform around content creators. So if you have a blog, if you make pictures, memes, if you do a podcast, videos, man on the street, anything, let them know. And also, pretty much along the same lines, I'm also being picked up by timetofree.us. And Jeremiah at timetofree.us is a great guy. This podcast will be posted there. TimeToFree.us, a community of anarchists. Comment on this podcast, visit their website, or tweet them at TimeToFreeUs to find out how to join their community. It's along the same lines. It's more of like a blogging type platform, but they are also looking for content creators. Anarchists and libertarians and voluntarists are making these platforms to get people out and heard, and please take advantage of that. SovereigntyNetwork.com and TimeToFree.us. And I will be premiering my brand new logo that the Sovereignty Network made. Andrew at the Sovereignty Network made for me. So you will be seeing new styles coming up through my show. Okay, enough of all of that. I'm going to get into news. And as all of you probably already know, Muhammad Ali passed away last night. Regardless of how you feel about Muhammad Ali and what he did in his life politically or anything like that, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "I ain't draft dodging. I ain't burning no flag. I ain't running to Canada. I'm staying right here. You want to send me to jail? Fine. You go right ahead. I've been in jail for 400 years. I could be there for 4 or 5 more. But I ain't going 10,000 miles to help murder and kill poor people. If I want to die, I'll die right here, fighting you if I want to die." That man knew how to stand up for what he felt was right. Incredible. Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali. So, on to the first topic here. Madeleine Albright. Nobody's going to die from Clinton emails. Hillary Clinton's use of private email server while as Secretary of State will not kill anyone, according to former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. Quote, "She has said she made a mistake, and nobody's going to die as a result of anything that happened on emails," Albright told CNN. "I am concerned that some statements that Donald Trump has made are dangerous, though," Albright continued. Now, if you listen to my intro, the first person that you hear is Madeleine Albright justifying sanctions on Iraq and killing 500,000 Iraqi children. Okay? So this witch gets on national television and tells us that nobody is going to die because of Hillary's emails. You have no room to talk, you murderous witch. You sat there cold-blooded on 60 Minutes and just said, yeah, no, 500,000 kids died in Iraq. Was it worth it? And you were like, yeah, well, all things considered, you gotta do what you gotta do. You witch. And you don't know anything about what you're talking about. Nobody even knows the full extent of what was on Hillary's emails. We don't know who had access to her servers. We don't know who had broken in. What countries, China, Russia, anyone else. We don't know what was in there, who broke in or had access to it, and what they took out and what everyone knows. You have no idea what the repercussions of this could be. You nasty old witch. Murdering 500,000 children. God. You have no room to talk. Moving on. Thank God feminists are finally getting back to the kitchen. This article is hilariously titled. Incredible. Thank God feminists are finally getting back to the kitchen. Historian Maggie Andrews thinks feminists are finally getting back into the kitchen. Quote, 30 years ago in the 1980s, the assumption that feminism was about escaping the domestic, getting out of the home, getting a job, and being financially independent, she said. But now, certain elements of the domestic life had become much sexier, much more popular, and escape from the horrors of society, feminism and the Women's Institute have sort of come together. And Professor Andrews is right. Modern feminists have lost their fear of the kitchen. If they need to give the services a wipe down, they will. This is from The Independent in the UK. I don't know how American feminists are really going to feel about this article, but either way, it is hilarious. After years of deliberately avoiding domestic chores to prove they're equal to men, feminists no longer care. If they want to clean, cook, take control of the children, they'll do so without panicking about whether they're letting down the sisterhood. Because in 2016, every feminist knows that the goal of gender equality is not a world where a woman never has to pick up a sponge again. It's a world where they have the choice to. Exactly. See, this professor is a true feminist, a Susan B. Anthony feminist, not this third wave bullshit cesspool. And as much as the sound of women getting back into the kitchen may sound like a step backwards for gender equality, actually it's progress. There has been a real shift in attitudes and domesticity within the feminist movement and scholarship. There's been a lot of people looking at the domestic in the way they didn't 30 years ago. Maybe it isn't a bad thing. The only reason the home was ever seen as a negative place for women was because for centuries it was their prison. And she has a point. Again, I don't know if these third wave feminists are really going to enjoy that too much. Okay. This is the next article that's really going to make me mad. And I have some other news coming up after this. Why Americans are giving up their citizenship. Knife man in a London tube. The Trump rally, Venezuela. Why Beijing is tracking the elderly, and some marijuana news. So please stay tuned. But U.S.-backed forces open major front in Syrian war. And I love how the media is just reporting this like it's just normal. Oh yeah, there's a giant proxy army led by the United States. Yeah, they're just pushing in Syria. It's cool. It's awesome. Thousands of U.S.-backed fighters opened a major new front in the Syrian war. The offensive is to drive Islamic State out of a swath of northern Syria. The operation, which begun Tuesday after weeks of quiet preparation, aims to choke off the group's access to Syrian land along the Turkish border. A small number, tiny bit of U.S. forces will support the push. They will be as close as they need to be to complete the operation, but will not engage in direct combat, an official said. Well, U.S. troops wounded by ISIS, but they weren't in active combat, Pentagon says. 2 U.S. troops were wounded in Iraq and Syria over the weekend. A little Freudian slip there. The Pentagon confirmed Tuesday, and a sign that the number of offensive operations in Syria against the Islamic State has increased, and so has the danger for American forces. Yeah, because they're in there fighting in Syria. One service member, probably of a special operations, was hit by indirect fire, such as a rocket or mortar, while in the northern Syrian city of Raqqa. And another was also hit by indirect fire outside of Erbil in Iraq. You guys remember a couple of years ago, Obama said that Assad's got to go and asked Congress to vote on authorization for war against Syria and Assad regime. And then everyone, including soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, started getting on social media and saying we're not going to fight for Al-Qaeda. And then 18 months later or so, ISIS magically breaks off from Al-Nusra Front, also an Al-Qaeda affiliate, also fighting for the rebellion. and then they just start this terror campaign that gets the attention of the American people, and that's just the justification you need because they're lopping off American heads. And then now we have U.S. troops in Syria and Iraq again. Does no one see this connection here? Does the media not care that Obama wanted to get Assad out of Syria? It totally backfired, and now a couple years later we have this ISIS thing, and then now we have troops in 250 that they admit to. We're flying all over the place, airstriking everything. The rebellion, if you want to take the official narrative, it's got the Free Syrian Army, which is supposedly moderate Muslims that just want to have a free state. But a large percentage of the rebellion is Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, and then ISIS broke off from them. And now we're helping this rebel force, this US-backed force, get into Iraq and Syria. When has that never backfired for us? I don't know, Afghanistan. If you look at the end of Rambo 3, it says for the brave freedom fighters in Afghanistan. He was talking about Osama bin Laden. How do we know these people we're giving training and arms to aren't just terrorists themselves? How many times do we have to go through this bullshit to realize what's going on? I don't understand how the media just reports them as like, yeah, U.S. troops in Syria are getting shot and they're leading this giant army, but ISIS though. Like, what the fuck is going on? It's slowly, incrementally getting us into this conflict. He wanted to go full bore in. It totally backfired. So now we're just being slowly trickled into it. It's the same thing. Exact same thing. And as more U.S. troops either get killed or wounded in Syria, the easier it's going to get to justify this whole thing. Absolutely incredible. I can't believe it. On to the next article here. Why Americans are giving up their citizenship in record numbers. Washington Post. Government statistics show a record number of people renouncing their citizenship, but it's not because of Trump. It's taxes. In the first quarter of this year, 1,158 people expatriated, more than 10 times the number in the first quarter of 2008. America may be the land of the free, but leaving isn't necessarily cheap. Those who renounce their citizenship could be subject to an exit tax on all of their assets around the world as if they had been sold on the last day they were in America. Even with nearly $700,000 worth of exemptions, the bill can be hefty. And guess who these people are that are leaving? The rich. Remember that little girl that Cavuto had on the show? She was the leader of the March for 15, whatever bullshit. Well, there will always be rich people to tax in this country. I mean, he was like, well, what if they just leave? Well, there'll always be. No, they won't. That's what happened in Greece. When you make all the money and you're successful, after a while of getting taxed 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%, you kind of get sick of it and you leave. And that's exactly what's going on in this country. It's not cheap to leave. That lets you know that rich people are the ones leaving, because they don't want to pay these taxes anymore. And now you want universal health care paid off the backs of rich people. You want paid maternity leave on the backs of rich people. You want universal health care, student schooling, everything on the backs of the 1%. The 1%. They're taking everything. A fucking clown. They'll just leave. And I would too. And this next article is from the United Kingdom. Leytonstone stabbing. Knife man was attacking people at random in an underground London station. Terrified eyewitnesses to a suspected terror attack in the London Underground last night told how a knife man was attacking people at random. The man, aged 56, is in serious condition in the hospital after he was stabbed while 2 others were hurt. The suspect is alleged to have attacked people at the underground station in East London last night. One witness claimed the man shouted, "This is for Syria," as he was being led away by police. But, it's London and you can't defend yourself. But, a radical Muslim, probably immigrant, can go around slashing people. And here's why I bring this up, because the disconnect or the political correctness, I don't know what you want to call it, in the United Kingdom is so bad that basically this guy is like blaming himself for what I'm about to tell you. The man who shouted at the suspected terrorists, "You ain't no Muslim, bruh," fears terrorist retribution. The 39-year-old security guard from North London, who is not a Muslim, said he was upset about people who make generalizations linking Muslims to extremists. You just witnessed a guy, a Muslim, slashing people in a subway, yelling, "This is for Syria." But you're upset that people make generalizations about Muslims and terror. Really? I don't see Jehovah's Witnesses going around slashing people and saying, "This is for Jehovah." Or Jews going around saying, "This is for Israel." He said people look at Muslims and look at ISIS and they think they're all the same, but they're obviously not. I get that. But to deny there is a link at all is dumb. But the paper also reports he fears terrorist retribution after the comments he just made. Does that not tell you everything right there? You witness a guy slashing people, you make a comment about how he's not a real Muslim, and then you say, "Oh, I'm scared that other Muslims that hear me say this to this guy might attack me too." Really? That says everything right there. The fact that you're scared that other Muslims will attack you for telling a Muslim who just attacked people that he's not a Muslim should tell you everything. "Oh, not all Muslims are bad, but I fear one coming along and killing me because I said one was not a true Muslim." Dude, are you serious? Okay, these articles are supposed to bring me down a notch, but they just keep me going. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, I guess, just do one giant rant this episode. Holy fuck. And as you all know, the violence that broke out in San Jose over the Trump protests, everyone knows that it was widely covered. But what I want to focus in on is a picture from those protests. It's from Alex Stone, ABC News. You can follow him, A Stone, ABC News. The title is "Protesters Burn a Trump 2016 Make America Great Again hat after rally." And it's 3 young Hispanic-looking women. One looks like a Triggly-Puff wannabe fat ass, and there's a guy reaching into the photo, waving a Mexican flag over the burning hat. So you have Mexican flag waving guy, you have Triggly-Puff wannabe, and the girl in the middle has a Che Guevara shirt on, and the girl on the outside, cackling into the microphone, has a sign saying, "We need socialism." This is what this is the protesters. This is who is outside of a Trump rally. This is the opposition, a Che Guevara shirt and a "We Need Socialism" sign, and a guy waving a Mexican flag above a burning hat, and a Triggly-Puff wannabe, Mexican version Triggly-Puff. I am a libertarian anarchist. I'm a philosophical anarchist. But things like this make me want to vote for Trump just out of principle and spite. Che Guevara was the revolutionary in Cuba, along with Fidel Castro. He has been popularly quoted as being racist and being anti-gay. This guy is terrible, but he is ideologued for no good reason. Incredible things we got going on here. So, in going to this, we need socialism. Really? You need socialism? Well, this little article I have right here, we want food. Venezuelans cry at protest near presidency. We want socialism. Well, people in socialist countries are saying, we want food. People pissed off little girls in America go, we want socialism. An entire country, socialist country, is saying, we want food. I should really put these two together and just, this headline, we want food, Venezuelans. This girl with the sign, we need socialism. I'll trade you. You guys can come here to America and have some food. You can take her. Venezuelan security forces fired tear gas at protesters chanting, we want food, near the Caracas presidential palace. It's been since 8 in the morning, and there's no food in the shops or in the supermarkets, one woman said. We are hungry and tired. Is this what you want, you dumbasses? Look at all the socialist countries. They're falling apart. And don't give me this bullshit Scandinavian thing, because the prime minister over there even said that they've been going to a more free market economy. And that's why things are going so well. They tried the socialist model and it was terrible. And so the past decade or so, they've been going back. Despite their country having the largest oil reserves in the world, Venezuelans are suffering shortages of consumer goods ranging from milk to flour in the soaring prices and shrinking economy. Maduro blames the fall of global oil prices and an economic war by his foes, whom he accuses of also seeking a coup. It's not his fault. It's not his ideologue's fault. It's not his economics' fault. No. It's other people. While he runs, by the way, military drills in his country to thwart off an invasion by the West. Your country is dying. Your people are starving. You have no power. You have no water. You have no food. Your inflation's up nearly 200%. And you want to do military drills and blame all the problems on Western ideologues. We want socialism. Go to Venezuela. I hate when people say that. You know, that's the common libertarian answer. You know, rebuttal. Why don't you just move to Somalia? But really, Venezuela is a democratic socialist country. Maduro was voted in. Go to Venezuela and see if you like it. And speaking of Venezuela and Democratic Socialist and Bernie won't answer questions about Venezuela, and here's 7 reasons why. And this article is amazing by Aaron Blander, and I think everyone should read it in its entirety, but I won't go over it now. In an interview with Univision, Sanders was asked, I'm sure that you know about this topic. Various leftist governments, especially the populists, are in serious trouble in Latin America. The socialist model in Venezuela has nearly collapsed. Argentina, also Brazil. How do you explain this failure? Sanders dodged the question by saying he's focusing on the presidential race. When pressed, Sanders further said, of course I have an opinion, but as I said, I'm focused on my campaign. You have no answer. That's why. You can't justify this. You were the guy, when you were mayor of whatever the fuck Townville, USA, praised bread lines, food lines, socialist food lines, by basically saying, well, at least they have food. Incredible. When the president of Russia Boris Yeltsin came to this country in the early 90s, he almost cried because there was so much food in our supermarkets. And not just so much food, so much selection. It's like the quote I made, you can either stand in line for hours choosing your food, or you can stand in line for hours for food in the first place. You can either spend hours searching for the food you want, or you can spend hours in a line waiting for food to be given to you. Boris Yeltsin, in a biography, was said to have, when he was on his way back to Moscow, broke down and couldn't believe what his ideologue, his successors, his predecessors had done to his people. Here are 7 reasons why Sanders refused to answer the questions. Number 1, Venezuela is Sanders' ideologue, put into practice. Sanders refers to himself as a democratic socialist. Former Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez could also be considered as such, since he was democratically elected. Sanders may not be proposing to go as far as Chavez, but he has built his campaign on Chavez-esque class warfare. Exactly. And one point I want to make on that is that Chavez nationalized entire industries like the oil and things of that nature. What makes Sanders even worse is that instead of taking entire industries and socializing them, nationalizing them all together, what Sanders is proposing is putting policies into place that affect the entire economy as a whole. And that's that kind of sneaky way of getting around. It's like, I don't want to take this, I don't want to take that, I don't want to socialize anything, I don't want to nationalize anything, but you want to put regulations and taxes on the entire economy as a whole, across all industries. So it's even worse. Number 2, Venezuela is in dire economic straits. Thanks to its vast oil reserves, Venezuela was the richest Latin American country in the world. The current unemployment rate is at 6.8, lower than it was before they nationalized everything, but the inflation rate has vastly increased, 181%. That's because in a socialist economy, you have to artificially manipulate the markets. They can give everyone a state job and say the unemployment's at 0%. That doesn't mean anyone in those jobs is being productive and adding to the economy. In fact, they aren't, because they're being paid by the state, and the only way the state can pay anybody is to take money from somebody else. So anyone that has a job, a government job, is not contributing anything to the economy. They're redirecting wealth. They're not creating it. Number 3, Venezuela is plagued with chronic blackouts, power outages. Number 4, Venezuela's public health system is a nightmare. Venezuela has universal government-run healthcare, just like what Sanders wants. But the 2 lengthy profiles in the New York Times and the UK Telegraph reveal how the shortages and rationing has come as a byproduct of the universal healthcare system and has created shoddy, unsanitary hospitals where patients unnecessarily die from poor medical care. And they're running out of gloves, soap, water, properly functioning x-rays, dialysis machines, antibiotics, paper, and 10,000 doctors. They're short because they just left. That's what people do. If you press them hard enough, they leave. And if things keep going the way they are, people in America will just continue to leave. Number 5, Venezuela's face shortages in food and basic necessities Americans take for granted. Yeah, like the girl holding up the stupid ass "We want socialism" sign. Basic necessities Americans take for granted. Take your sign and go stand in a line to get into the supermarket. And then when you get in there, you realize there's nothing. Number 6, Venezuela has become one of the world's most dangerous countries. And number 7, by contrast, Chile has taken the opposite direction as Venezuela and has prospered. Chile, which adopted a free market reform after a military coup ousted Marxist Salvador Allende, has higher income per capita, better healthcare, better standards of living, and more freedom than Venezuela, according to Reason magazine. Well, of course, that's how it works. But you have this group of spoiled, not informed, just idiots running around in this country who feel that they were slighted and feel that the government force and socialism is the only way that they can get back. How about you build something? How about you start a business? How about you start a charity? How about you do anything productive? But no, you want to stand outside of a Trump rally and punch normal people in the head as they come out. What if I was just there just to listen to what the guy had to say? Maybe I'm not even a supporter. Maybe I went to that rally and decided, no, he's definitely not my guy. Go to a Trump rally, decide, I'm not going to vote for him. You walk outside, you get clunked in the head by the only other option that you have, the left. So now you don't want to vote for Trump, and then you just got punched in the face by a Democratic supporter. Real smart. Okay. Last two articles here. Why Beijing is tracking the elderly. And I love how this article just made it like 1990, like, oh, it's so great, because they want to do this in this country. These days, this is communist China, Beijing. These days, when people over 80 in Beijing take a bus, see a doctor, spend money, their activities are digitally tracked by the government, but as a part of an effort to improve services to the rapidly growing old people. Oh, it's for you. It's so great. Every move you make, everywhere you go is tracked digitally by the government. Nothing could go wrong from that, especially in communist China, right? The data is amassed with each swipe of a multi-purpose Beijing Connect card into a massive database of elderly in the capital. But the city officials hope the information will enable them to better cope with the population of over 60, which is already at 3 million. It's for their own good. We just want to make sure the old people are getting what they want. We want to track everything they go, everything they buy, where they go, all their patterns into a national database. What could go wrong in communist China? They killed 60 million of their own people under Mao Zedong. What could go wrong? It's so great. We should do that here in America. Track all the old people. It'll be awesome. Chronic marijuana use is about as bad for you as not flossing, new research finds. Long-term marijuana use is not associated with a raft of physical health problems, according to a new study, with one exception, gum disease. Researchers at Arizona State University tracked marijuana habits of 1,037 New Zealanders from birth to middle age to see what the effects those habits had on some commonly measured health factors, including lung function, systematic inflammation, cholesterol levels, etc. What they found was surprising. After controlling for all other factors known to affect health, especially tobacco use or socioeconomic status, marijuana use had no negative effect on health, except for dental. The cause is somewhat of a mystery. Mayer and her colleagues did find that heavy pot users were less likely to brush and floss than their not smoking peers. But after even controlling for dental hygiene, the relationship between marijuana use and poor dental health persisted. So there you have it, folks. Potheads don't brush their teeth as much, but they say they even factored that out and it still persists. But the point is that this whole scare, marijuana, no. Just legalize it. Look at Colorado. It's great. And that was the last article I had, folks. That was one giant 30-minute plus long rant. And it feels good. I feel good. I got it out. So now I can move on with my life. Thank you guys for listening. You can find me on Twitter at Slav Libertarian. You can find me on YouTube, The Slavic Libertarian. find me on SoundCloud, Below the Tension. You can find me on iTunes, Below the Tension. You can find me on Sovereignty Network / Below the Tension. And you will soon be able to find me on timetofree.us. And thank you again to Andrew at the Sovereignty Network for the new logos that I will be premiering on this show. So thank you guys for listening, and have a nice day.